What's up, guys? Raziel here again with another video for you. And today I wanted to talk about how Final Fantasy XIV's upcoming expansion Shadowbringers has the potential to make or break this game. What do I mean? Well, keep watching and let's find the fuck out.
I am Raziel.
Alright guys, it's time for another video. Now, to preface this video, as I often do, this video is going to be more of a podcasty type-esque video as opposed to a visual video. However, as always, I will put some candy on the screen for you to watch if you're sitting in front of a computer. But this is also a fantastic video to listen to if you're, driving in your car, I don't know, sitting at work with your headphones on, masturbating in your room.
Oh my.
Pretty much anything. So if you have some shit to do, take care of around the house, but you want to plug something into your ears, this is a good video to listen to. Anywho, let's go on. There's a couple huge points I want to go over about the upcoming expansion Shadowbringers, and the points are the lore, the setting of the expansion, the tank balance, the healer balance, the trust system, the world visiting feature that we are going to be getting here in April, and the return, possibly the return of the old Relic weapon system. So those are the points I want to go over, as all these points have the potential to drastically affect how the expansion Shadowbringers ultimately plays out, and it's the game's overall effect on the MMORPG genre right now. So let's go right into the first point that I want to talk about. So as I said, the first point is the lore, the setting of the expansion. And before I get into the actual setting of Shadowbringers expansion, I want to talk about something that we all really fucking love to talk about, which is the MMORPG genre and the old king, the king is dead, World of Warcraft. Now, the reason why I bring up World of Warcraft here is because World of Warcraft did something similar, or attempted something similar in terms of game setting in the, arguably, it definitely was in the past, but now it's very arguable with the release of BFA, worst expansion in WoW's history, Warlords of Draenor, where you went back to Draenor, which in the current version of WoW is Outland, and in an alternate timeline, if you will, which it didn't work. It didn't work at all, and I'm going to show you how Final Fantasy's take on a similar idea, is much, much, much better and much more likely to succeed. First off, with World of Warcraft in the state that it's in right now, and the game is dead, if not, dying, and it's not going to come back. Classic WoW is not going to save it. It's going to boost its numbers temporarily, and then everything is going to fall apart. And I've seen this already with the massive influx of new players. All the servers, even the legacy servers like the one I am on, Sargatanas, are getting of WoW players who used to be WoW players. Now they're, Final Fantasy players, and discovering this fantastic world. Anyway, back on topic. World of Warcraft's alternate universe had no relevance to the game right from the get-go. Literally, the writers of the story for World of Warcraft literally made it no longer relevant after the very beginning of the expansion. You go into the Dark Portal, and then within, about 25 minutes of questing, the Dark Portal is closed, so there's no threat to the current world of Azeroth anymore. And there's really no fucking reason to be on Draenor anymore, other than to help out some alternate timeline NPCs that don't give a shit about you. So right out of the gate, World of Warcraft cut itself off at the knees with their idea, as in they made it very clear up front, hey, whatever happens in this alternate version of Draenor has little to absolutely zero impact on the current world of Azeroth. Excuse me. Anyway, with Final Fantasy, though, when you are venturing into the world called the First, or the Dimension, if you're unfamiliar with the lore, let me give you a brief history. When Hydaelyn and Zodiark, the Dark and the Light Crystals, were together, the Dark Crystal Zodiark started getting more power, And eventually the Light Crystal Hydaelyn, the one that we all serve as Warriors of Light, pushed, pretty much bound and put Zodiark into the moon and forced him in there, which ultimately shattered the, existence into 13 parts, 13 reflections. They all started out the exact same as our Eorzea, but eventually, over time, developed completely differently. Histories, everything, the people that lived on them, what happened to them, their ultimate fates is all different. A good example of this is we all know that the 13th realm, the 13th shard, is completely no longer there. It's completely destroyed and turned into void. How an area turns into void is if either light or dark completely overpowers the other. And in the case of the 13th, it was completely overpowered by darkness and eventually turned into the void. Void is not darkness. Void is nothing. There's nothing there. It can be a white void or a dark void, but there's nothing there if it becomes a void. And the first broken off shard is what we call the first. And it's where we are going in Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, and it's a realm that is almost completely being absorbed by the light side, which is why we must become warriors of darkness. Now, how does this affect us in our realm, which our realm is called the Source? How does this affect us in any way, shape, or form? Well, if all of the other shards get turned into void, or get destroyed, or get reabsorbed back into Zodiark and Hydaelyn, it gives Zodiark more strength and more potential to revive, and so it ultimately does affect our own world. If too many worlds fall, we're fucked too. So it makes sense for us to go there, because if you are familiar with the Heavensward expansion, the Warriors of Darkness that we eventually defeated and turned back were from the first. They were from that shard and were Warriors of Darkness fighting the light there, because the light was far too powerful there, and they needed Warriors of Darkness. So, right out of the gate, the lore and the story behind why we're going to the first is relevant. As in Warlords of Draenor, it was not. Right out of the gate, nothing had meaning. Right out of the gate, everything has meaning here. So, if I'm going to use this pun here, night and day difference in the setting. So, and if there's one thing I can give Square Enix credit for, is that they have always been absolutely amazing and fantastic at creating great stories. The Final Fantasy XIV story up to this point has been amazing. Almost all the Final Fantasy games have been amazing story-wise. My favorite being Final Fantasy Tactics. Other games they've created with great stories, Chrono Trigger, one of the best RPGs of all time. Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore. They have a lot of... That's their niche, that's their thing, while... You look at Blizzard Entertainment, and every developer worth their salt that could even think up a great story thought up those stories and then left the company before even classic World of Warcraft was even a twinkle in Chris Metzen's eye. So Blizzard has no fucking skill when it comes to creating a story. In fact, they're the opposite of good. They're completely god-awful and terrible, and their stories suck ass from a straw. So... yeah, you can't really compare their story delivering skills. While in Final Fantasy XIV, I am fully confident in Yoshi P and the development team's ability to once again deliver us a great story, even though the 24-man raids that they announced in Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers and the setting of the 8-mans. I'm not familiar with the games they're based off of, but I'm still really excited, and I'm still sure they'll be great. And I'm kind of biased in the terms of, I think the 24-man Return to Ivalice raid series, which is currently in Stormblood, is the best. I thought the story of that was better than the main plot line in the game of Stormblood. So, but that's just me, as personal preference. Tactics was the greatest Final Fantasy game ever. Again, bias here. Anyway, let's move on to the next point. Tank balance. Tank balance is very, very essential here, and this definitely has a lot of potential for Square to do a fantastic job and capitalize on it and make the game that much better, or to completely fuck it up and kind of ruin tanking for an entire expansion, which in turn can ruin a game for the long run. What do I mean by tank balance? Well, I think Final Fantasy XIV is the first MMO to flat out tell its users that it's going for a double off tank, double main tank kind of structure in terms of a tank's abilities and whatnot. So maybe other MMOs have done it, but they never flat out came out and said that's what they were doing. And that's what Yoshi P said their plan is. When Shadowbringers launches, there'll be 4 tanks in the game: Warrior, Dark Knight, Paladin, and Gunbreaker. Now, we don't know much at all about Gunbreaker. We don't know its rotation. We don't know what kind of abilities it's going to have. Dark Knight, we know, is probably going to be getting the biggest revamp and redesign out of any tank job that's currently in the game, but we know that every tank and every class for that matter is going to get touched in some way or another in terms of reorganization and reworking of the classes for balance sake and for fun's sake. But there are a lot of traps that Square could potentially fall into with the redesign of the Dark and the introduction of the Gunbreaker. One and first being if the 2 off-tank roles, regardless of what they are, my prediction and my guess is the 2 main tanks are going to be Warrior and Dark Knight, and the off-tanks are going to be Gunbreaker and Paladin. Where they can paint themselves into a fucking corner with doing it this way, though, is if one tank excels at DPS. Let's say the off-tanks excel at DPS because they're off-tanking. What I would hope they excel at is abilities that support the main tank, such as covering and shit like that. If they can paint themselves in a corner in 2 ways. Sorry, this video is completely not scripted, so I'm just rambling. Most of this entire video's discussion I had with myself in the fucking shower. Yeah, I'm a goddamn lunatic, but I digress. If let's say that the 2 off tanks, Paladin and Gunbreaker, in this hypothetical scenario, let's say they are the highest DPS. If they can, out of all the 4 tanks, now if they can manage, 2 main tank to take hits in progression rating, to barely scrape by in terms of tanking effectiveness, while also providing way more damage than the Dark Knight or the Warrior can, you're going to have a problem, because the meta is going to shift and everyone will want those 2 tanks. No one will want the main tanks, and Square will be fucked. And then we'll be band-aiding the other 2 tanks the rest of the expansion, much in the way that Dark Knight was band-aided non-stop during all of Stormblood. They weren't lucky and didn't get the complete rework like Warrior did, because Warrior released in such a terrible state at the start of Stormblood. So they have that one option. Then there's the other option. Let's say the DPS is close. Let's say off-tank does a tiny bit more, the Warrior does a tiny bit more, and Gunbreaker does a tiny bit more, and Paladin and Dark Knight in the middle. It's just, again, hypothetical scenarios. But let's say the 2 ones, Warrior and Dark Knight, that are set as main tank, completely trivialize fights with how good they are at main tanking and absorbing and preventing damage. If that's the case, and let's say if you have off tanks, it completely hinders how fast you can progress, because your off tanks are getting insta-gibbed by tank mechanics, while the main tanks can handle them with ease. Again, you have that scenario there, where again, now the main tank's always going to be the one that's taken, because the DPS difference isn't that big, but how easy the content becomes if you take 2 main tanks becomes much, much, much easier, because they can take hits way better. This balance and this dance that Square has to do here is going to be very intricate, very delicate, and it's going to have to be done perfectly if they want this idea of 2 off tank, 2 main tank to work and to be successful for the game. And if they do make it successful and work for the game, it'll be something that no other MMO has really accomplished, and it'll be really, really great. But keep this in mind, and this is the bottom line here about my opinion about tanks. Even if they perfect the balance, even if they make it so all the tanks are desirable, all the different tank combinations are desirable, Warrior Gunbreaker, Dark Knight Gunbreaker, Paladin Gunbreaker, Paladin Dark Knight, Paladin Warrior, Warrior Dark Knight, you get all of it. If any combination of tank is viable and it works, even 2 main tanks or 2 off tanks, and you can still get through content, it's going to be irrelevant if one or more of the tanks, if any of the tanks, are not fun to play. If people do not find them fun to play. For me, example right now, I think Warrior is bores me to tears to play. Paladin is okay. I love playing Dark Knight. If they completely fucking ruin Dark Knight as a role and it's not enjoyable anymore, I obviously will switch and it'll break my goddamn heart. But if it's not fun, that's what's important to me. I mean, I've mained Dark Knight all of Stormblood and it's never been a part of the meta. I don't care about the meta. Fuck the meta. And a lot of people get a false conception of how the game is because of the meta, and I mean this in the nicest way, and it comes from the bottom of my heart. If you think you have to use the meta and you're always trying to get meta jobs and play meta jobs because it's the meta, or make meta groups, you're a fucking idiot, okay? Unless you're doing it to use a parse group, a very specific parse group, you're a fucking idiot if you only play because of the meta. And that's just my opinion. You're not allowing yourself to enjoy the game to its maximum potential. Anyway, moving on to the next point, healers. Now, a lot of people are flipping out. Me, I don't personally give a fucking shit, you know, but a lot of people are flipping out that Dancer was announced as a ranged DPS class and not a healer class. I personally don't care, and in fact, I think it's kind of a good thing that it wasn't released as a healer, and let me tell you why. All throughout Stormblood and through most of Heavensward and the Realm Reborn, tank balance has been a problem, especially with the introduction of Astrologian. Healer balance, I mean. Healer balance has been a problem. I mean, right now, White Mage is, in a lot of cases, not desired in Stormblood. Scholar is very, very good. And, of course, Astrologian is very good, but is also subject to heavy RNG. Healers need to be rebalanced, and if they would have added another healer to the mix, it just would have caused even more problems and made it even more likely that there would be one or two odd healers out that don't see much love, regardless of if they're fun to play or not, because bringing them is a hindrance to your group. Healers right now also have a drastic effect on what tanks you bring, because, for example, if I, as a Dark Knight main, if I don't have a White Mage in the group, I have to be more careful and more aware of when I'm using the ability, you know, Living Dead, my ultimate oh shit button, invincibility oh shit button, because if a White Mage can Benny and instantly heal me to full, while the other two healers, I have to chain another cooldown to it, like Convalescence, to get more heals, and it's a whole thing. So, healer balance is very important, and I'd much rather have Yoshi P and his very competent development team focus on getting all the healers balanced and all the healers fun than just jamming another one in there because people want a healer and fucking up the equation even more. Healer balance is very much tied into tank balance, and I think if it's not brought up to par and done right in Shadowbringers, it could have just as much of a detrimental effect as the tank balance can on the game. I don't even play a healer. I don't even have a healer job leveled past 1. It's something I am planning on doing here in the near future, just to see what it's like. I've never really played healers in the MMO games I've played, but I think it's something that could be fun to try, and so I can get a taste of the pain that they experience. Because really, more than DPS, healers and tanks dictate how well a group can go. But healer balance is a very important thing for them to focus on, and so it's good overall, in my opinion, that we are not seeing a new healer in Shadowbringers. What's your opinion about that? I'm really interested. Next point, the trust system. Now, the trust system, we don't know a whole lot about. We kind of have an idea what it's going to be like from Final Fantasy XI, because it was in that game, but we know that we have been told that it's not going to be exactly like this system in Final Fantasy XI. I have some issues with the trust system in its concept, and I'll tell you why. The trust system could be very beneficial, and it could be very helpful for those DPS players who have no interest in playing a healer, no interest in playing a tank, and need to get through main storyline dungeons, as quickly as the tanks and healers can with their instant queues. And I can see it being effective in that way. I can see it being a useful tool in that way. But on the flip side of the coin, the trust system further removes organic interactions and the need for things like a free company and to make friends, in the world, because this is a fucking MMO. It's not a single-player game. The more single-player aspects they add, in my opinion, the farther it pushes the game away from the genre. And if you want a single-player game, go fucking play a single-player game. This is an MMO. It's designed around making friends and doing content with strangers, and you get negative experiences and you get good ones. In Final Fantasy XIV, you get far more good experiences than negative, especially compared to WoW. And you know what? Removing interaction and adding more anonymity and less personal responsibility on players is one of the wrong roads World of Warcraft went down near the end of Wrath of the Lich King with Party Finder and all that shit. It's one of the reasons WoW went down its road it's down and led it to where it is now, where it's a complete steaming pile of fucking donkey shit. I don't want to see Final Fantasy take steps to go down that road. Will the trust system do that? I don't know. We don't have enough information about that yet. All I know is it could be a very useful tool, and it could be something that helps. But if it becomes something that's the norm and relied on, I think it's going to do more harm to the game than good. What's your opinions about the trust system? What do you think is going to happen when it comes into the game? Again, I expressed all of these concerns when I did my video a few months back after the first reveal of Shadowbringers. So I hope it's something fun and something good and something you can use in a pinch for a queue. However, if it's something that can be used in anything above just a normal level dungeon, I think it's going to be bad. But that's just my opinion. Again, we'll see how it plays out. Okay, next point, the world visiting feature. We're going to see this feature come into its full glory here at the end of April, beginning of May, where you can visit other worlds on your data center and play with people on your data center, which right now you already can via the Party Finder, but it's going to be much more in depth. You can actually physically travel and stay on another world, use their market board, which is good because it's ultimately going to balance out all the market boards across all the realms, regardless of population, the pricing system, so you don't have players gouging the lower pop realms, and you don't have, the higher pop realms having really low value on a lot of things. So that's one very good aspect. I'm kind of disappointed that Square didn't take this a tad further and include cross-world within your data center free company joining. That would have been really, really, really cool if you could join a free company on a different realm. I get one aspect where being on your realm forces you to be in a free company, which is going to move people. So there's positives to both. But speaking of free company, I still don't understand why Square has not integrated a free company search feature or a free company recruiting system within the game, because let's be honest, come on, it's 2019. Doing that fucking shit over Reddit or the forums, which hardly anybody uses, needs to go away. It needs to not be a thing. It would be really great if that got added at some point in Shadowbringers. There have been rumors something like that maybe in the works, but ultimately we'll see. We didn't get any information about such a feature during the 3 fan fests, so we'll have to be patient and see on that. The world visiting feature is a really, really great integration into Final Fantasy XIV, and I think it's much better than the auto synchronization feature that was added into WoW with cross-realm. That just caused fucking problems. People appear, disappear, because you didn't get to choose when you skipped servers there unless you had an add-on. And it really caused a lot of problems with open world PvP. Now, I know Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have open world PvP, so I think ultimately this is going to be a really fun feature. Maybe if you visit a world enough and you make some friends there, it'll ultimately encourage you to transfer to that realm and join an FC. I think this is something that has 99% potential of bringing Final Fantasy up and 1% potential of causing problems. But overall, this is something that's definitely going to make Final Fantasy XIV a better game. All right, and now on to my final point. The return that we got in the latest Mr. Happy interview with Yoshi P, the return of the old Relic system. Now, I think we can all agree that if they return to the old Relic system, that they'll probably add a new take on it. For example, you did the books in A Realm Reborn, and then you had the dust and all the other shit in Heavensward, and then with the Relic system in Stormblood was all the Eureka system. Eureka as a whole, in my opinion, was okay. It was an interesting idea. I thought Hydaros was great. How you had that whole hard raid they put in there if you wanted to do it, but it wasn't required. However, I thought that overall Eureka was too grindy in the wrong way. What I mean by that is, I have no problem grinding my ass off for something, for a great, fantastic, unique, rare reward, if you can kind of change shit up. However, every single Eureka zone, true to Final Fantasy XI, which it was, hailing to, was just grinding the same fucking mobs over and over and over again. Brain dead, Animos is brain dead following on an M train. Pagos was complete fucking cancer from its iteration, just complete shit from its map design, all the way down to its enemies and its NM fate spawning.
So much cancer!
Let's be straight up. Even after all of its nerfs, it still is cancer to this day, and I can't bring myself to go back in there and do it. I probably eventually will before the expansions end, just to at least get one more full Relic weapon. I already have one completely done, but going back there gives me cancer already. Pyros was a huge step up from Pagos. It was much funner, it was much more active, NM spawned way more frequently, but still you had the problem of you're just NM train farming. And then on to Hydatos, which I've already mentioned my opinions about Hydatos. Eureka was a great experiment, and one thing I will give Square credit for again is that it's not afraid to take risks and do things that other MMOs just won't do, even if they end up being colossal fuck-ups like Pagos and half of Eureka ended up being. I thought that it was a really cool thing that they did, and it's great that Yoshi P openly admitted that he sees that half the community, if not more, prefers the old Relic style we had in Heavensward and A Realm Reborn, but that if they go back to the old style, they're going to do another small take on it and change it up a little bit. Me, personally, I prefer the old style. I prefer having the option of going back to old content to grind, but bouncing between different things because they'll all give me the same, progress towards my Relic weapon. And it's more active in terms of running a dungeon's always going to be more active than riding a Fate train. I mean, half the people on the Fate trains throughout all Eureka were AFK. So ultimately, I think they don't need to go straight back to the old style, but they need to add to the old style, make the old style a little more engaging with more options in Shadowbringers. Because if it's another fucking mess like Eureka, or if it's completely boring like A Realm Reborn, seems to be to us now, it's gonna be a problem for the expansion. So I think if they take the old system and mix in a little Eureka, mix in a little new, I think they'd have a winner on their hands as far as getting Relic weapons and armor in Shadowbringers. And so those are all my main points, and I wanted to say one other thing. Square Enix with Shadowbringers has a massive opportunity here to become, if they aren't already, and stay the king of MMOs in 2019 and beyond, because there's no real big MMOs that look exciting coming on the horizon. There is the Ashes of Creation, but as more and more info gets leaked out about that, the more crooked and corrupt the company running that seems to appear, the more bad decisions and bad deals they're making, very microtransaction-y, bullshit-based. We still haven't seen any real concrete evidence of the actual MMO itself even being close to anywhere near where they say it is in terms of completion. So, and it may come out and be complete fucking crap like almost every other MMO that's ever come out in the last 5 years. But Final Fantasy XIV, because of the state World of Warcraft is in, how it's complete shit now, how Activision Blizzard's laying off people hand over fist, has a real opportunity to, with Shadowbringers, to sit on the throne and wear that crown as it much deserves. It's been a silent sleeper for a while now in the MMO genre, and a lot of people are starting to wake up now that, Blizzard's tune is, the equivalent of smelling a fat guy's fart in the shower. So it's very, very, very likely to succeed if Square does the things I mentioned in this video correctly. If Square is able to capitalize on tank balance and make it fun, healer balance, make it fun, make the storyline work in a relevant way to the current world, make the trust system not remove player interaction, to have the world visiting feature be a positive, and to make the relic earning system a positive thing, and not so mindlessly grindy like Eureka ended up being. If they can do all these things, I think those are the major turning points. We all know this Square is going to have a fantastic soundtrack and great raid encounters. They're always good with that. A lot of us, myself included, would like a change in how endgame gearing happens. We didn't see anything like that talked about in any of the fan fests, so it may be something we have to wait even longer for. But that's okay if they can make the whole overall expansion engaging and fun in the first place. The 24-man raid has a lot of has big shoes to fill with Return to Ivalice in the rear view mirror now. The 8-mans have always been solid. I'm not worried about those at all. But if they can do all these things successfully in Shadowbringers without it blowing up in their face, they will be the top MMO with no questions, arguments, ifs, ands, or buts about it in 2019, 2020, and possibly all the way into 2021. So what are your thoughts and opinions, guys? What do you think about what I've talked about? What are you worried about or excited about in Shadowbringers? And what do you, if there's anything that you felt I missed that you feel can be a huge turning point in the genre and in this game in general for Shadowbringers, please bring it up in the comment section down below. Anyway, guys, this has been Raziel. I will be back with more content as soon as I have more things to talk about. As I said before, I'm trying to avoid making videos that are clickbaity, trying to avoid making videos that are just news reporting about shit you can just Reddit. I'm more interested in giving my opinions about things when I'm thinking about them, and I want to talk about things as they come out. But please share yours with me in the comment section down below. If you'd like me to do more patch videos and things like that, you found those fun and interesting the way I did them, let me know. I have full intentions during Shadowbringers to be releasing mainly tank-specific guides for the content that comes out. So please let me know if that sounds interesting to you. As always, guys, this has been Raziel. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter. I don't really use Twitter that much, but you'll see the links to this on the screen now. And please come into my into my Twitch stream. You know, give me a hard time. Shoot the shit with me. I stream at right now. The current schedule is every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So come hit me up and have a good time. I'm going to start running some people through Savage, get some people some Savage clears and the content they haven't cleared yet. But this has been Raziel, guys. More content coming to you as soon as I find more content to put out that I believe in. And as always, keep it real.